He is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of the sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us, how he loves us so. Sing it with us. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us.
This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. We're so glad that you're able to join us today. we have something special beyond special. And we're going to get right to that. But right now, I just want to welcome our first-time guests. We're honored that you would be a part of this virtual worship experience. And so if you don't mind, we will speak to you throughout this virtual worship experience. Someone will say hello. Also, we just want to thank all of our longtime guests that have been with us and our regular iDisciples. You mean so much to us. Now, what we're going to ask you to do today, if you're able to, any comments that you have, just put them down. Someone may respond to you throughout the worship experience. In addition, likes and shares, we do appreciate them. As a matter of fact, for each share, it allows us to reach almost 100 people virtually. And that's a wonderful thing. So we do appreciate that. But right now, we're going to get into, some of you may already know that this is Clergy Appreciation Month. And I was thinking, who could I interview who really captures the heart of a pastor and a minister and a preacher of the gospel? And I did not have to go far, because I have one of the nation's, one of our world's greatest, and he is my Bishop, Dr. Leonard N. Smith. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Bishops. We're honored to have you. Now, I'm going to ask you several questions, but I'm going to just tell the folks a little bit about you. Many people know that you serve as the senior minister at Mount Zion Baptist, at the Mount Zion Baptist Church in Arlington, Virginia. You also, now I'm going to tell you, I don't know anybody that I know personally who has a school of religion named after you. And I'm honored to be a fellow of the Leonard N. Smith School of Religion at the Virginia University of Lynchburg. And Dr. Smith, you have served in this role since how long?
Wow. I've been involved with the university for over 30 years.
Wow. Let me tell you something. This man has done a little bit of everything. He has served as the chaplain to the Arlington County Fire Department. He served on numerous boards. He is vice presiding bishop with Global United Fellowship, and this is a global fellowship. And but I believe his heart is he loves his family. His wife Yolanda Blizzard Smith serves with him as an assistant in ministry. He also has children who serve in ministry. So he has a beautiful daughter, and her name is, you want to tell us her name?
Tiffany Dean.
Tiffany Deans. She also serves with him in ministry. And then he has a son. His name is Dr.
Philip.
Dr. Philip.
Philip Smith.
Philip Smith. And so,
but give him Dean.
Dean.
That's my son-in-law, but he's my son.
Your son-in-law, Reverend Mert, and we're so grateful for him and his ministry. But your heart beyond heart,
right,
is are those grandbabies. Can you tell us their names?
Ava and Emery.
Ava and Emery. I tell you, they are two doll babies. Well, Bishop, we're going to get right into our time with you. And I want to just go back. When did it all begin for you as a minister of the gospel? When did you start preaching? How did you know that you were called to preach the good news?
Well, I started as a child. My calling came very early in life.
Okay.
Unlike so many people search their lifetime to find out what their purpose is. I knew very early on in my life what my purpose was and continues to be. In fact, I know it even more now after what I've gone through physically. But that's when it all began.
Okay, and you started preaching Baltimore, Washington. Where was it?
I started in Baltimore.
Okay.
And relocated to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
In what was then called middle school.
Okay.
And I guess is what you call it now.
Right.
it was junior high school.
Right.
And continued, and I've just been on that track in terms of everything in my life.
So you went down into the country. You had some of those wilderness years.
Yes.
And tell us about those wilderness years, if you will, and how that played a key role when you moved back to the big city.
I had the awesome privilege of pastoring the Union Baptist Church of Gordonsville, Virginia. Awesome privilege. Some of the most wonderful people I've ever known in my entire life. I met in Gordonsville. Let me tell you, you just don't know. The heart of those people were just so pure. Wow. And they loved me with the kind of love I have not seen since.
So tell us, what is the difference of serving as a minister of the gospel way back when, 40 years ago, and today?
Well, today it's a different breed of people. As I said, back in Gordonsville, they were just pure-hearted, good people. Now you have to contend with people who know more than you know, and never have been trained, but yet they know everything and they can tell you everything. They read the Bible incorrectly.
Wow.
And then try to make you think your proper interpretation of the original language is wrong.
Wow.
Because they believe the only real Bible is the King James Bible. And so they read that old English as best they can and try to make that the voice of God.
So what would you say to a young Leonard Smith today who's starting off in ministry? What advice would you give him?
Don't do it.
Wow. That those words sound familiar. I've heard some great preachers give that same advice. Why would you say don't do it?
I would say don't do it simply because in this season this church thing is headed. And I would say sit under somebody now and work with somebody until we figure this thing all out. I'm amazed at how many people are authorities on post-pandemic recovery, and none of them have experienced it before. But they lead seminars and conferences and all those kind of things. But I think if you have a desire to start a ministry, begin a ministry, right now, I would just say be still. Just be still.
Be still. Let's go back. You have navigated, you have always been, in my opinion, just a mastermind of marketing and communications, and you have navigated this this pandemic in a phenomenal way. What advice would you give to the young man or the young woman who's starting out in ministry right now versus the 40 years ago and relative to the pandemic?
I would say don't be married to tradition.
Wow.
You can't afford to be married to tradition in this day. As I said, you got a different breed of people. And there are a lot of people who are young and traditional because they've been brainwashed. And
what does the young and traditional person look like? What does that look like?
They, that's those Bible misinterpreting people.
Okay.
That know more than the pastor. That would rather operate a business than a church.
Wow. So let's back up, because you struck a nerve there. When we were coming up, and you a few years before me, quite a few years before me, it was different in what you consider a congregational churches
Right.
like that are Presbyterian or Baptist or Lutheran, that are congregational led. And now that varies, because some of those churches are what we call elder led. But for the congregational led church, how do you navigate coming into ministry? How do you navigate the boards? You've had you've served with greats like Deacon Green, Melvin C. Green, and I could go on. But how do you navigate those relationships? Because Bishop, it's a challenge working with with either the trustees, the deacons, but you seem to, relative to relationships, Bishop, you know how to work with people. How do you do it?
Well, let me say this. I did it better years ago because, again, it's a different breed of people.
Okay.
How well do I do it now? Not so well, because it's a different breed.
Okay.
You know, at least the former breed, they knew I knew something.
Wow.
The present breed think I don't know anything and everything I've done is wrong.
So this is Clergy Appreciation Month, and there seems to be a gap between how the pastor, the bishop, we almost worshiped our bishop coming up. I'm just going to tell you, and he was the next thing to God in our eyes. There was a certain reverence that we have for the men and women of God. What seems to be the disconnect now? And how can churches better honor their pastor, their bishop, their overseer?
Well, I think the first thing we've got to admit, and that is, people don't know how to respect themselves, and they don't know how to respect each other. And because they can't respect themselves and each other, they certainly won't know how to respect the person that God has given them to be the watch person of their souls.
Wow.
If you take a look at what's happening today, you'll see that's what it is, just disrespect. People don't appreciate much of anything anymore.
Wow.
They don't appreciate the sacrifices of their parents, don't appreciate their children. They don't say thank you anymore. And so the same thing, what do you think they're going to do for you in your church? They're not going to do you like the old time saints did. Let me go back to Gordonsville. I guess you can tell I really enjoyed that.
You enjoyed Gordonsville.
I had a deacon and wife who brought me fried chicken and biscuits every Sunday morning. Every Sunday morning.
Wow.
Look, now I can't even get a thank you.
Oh my goodness.
But that was every Sunday morning. They treated me to that. And I look forward to it. They loved me in that way, and that was their way of showing their love and appreciation. They didn't have a lot of money. But here's what I like to tell young pastors who are in rural churches. They don't have a lot of money, but what they give you is cash.
Wow.
Because the truth of the matter is, if they bring you some corn or some chickens, you don't have to buy that.
Wow.
That's cash.
Wow.
That's money in the bank. And you have to learn to be grateful for that and not always look for dollars, you know.
Do you have one of those widow mite moments? that you can recall?
There are a whole lot of them.
Wow.
Where there are those who gave sacrificially to bless my life. And I think that's part of the reason why I've been such a giver in my own life. At Virginia University of Lynchburg, over that 30 years of serving the university, there were times when the church I served, Mount Zion, would give me an anniversary.
Wow.
And or appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd bless me real good. And I take every dime and give it to the university. Simply because I did not want to see the university. Too many African American institutions have died, and it's died in our hands, and I didn't want to see it.
Many people may not know this, and if I could just give testament just a little bit. I'm a church planner. I'm one of your sons, but I could not have done it without your help. And what people don't realize, you blessed me. You just did not stand in front of the congregation and bless me with your words. You made sure that my insurance was paid. You made sure that I had a stipend every month for 2 or 3, for at least a year, maybe 2 years.
Right.
I've never heard of that. And when I was coming up in the African American church, that was just not the norm.
Right.
Most of the time when people left, they leave and it was a split of some kind.
Right.
That was phenomenal. And who have you sort of observed as a pastor, or is it just who you are?
That was the move of God based upon who I am, but also based upon you. See, you left right. And because you left right and you had me involved in the entire process, I felt obligated to make certain that certain things took place. And so, now I didn't do this all by myself. The church was kind.
Yes.
I don't have those kind of leaders now.
Wow.
But they were extremely kind,
Right.
and willing to help and to sow into the ministry. But it was because you did it right. You didn't split it.
Wow.
You know, you planted a church. And there's a difference between a split and a plan.
Wow. So you've seen this. Tell me, Bishop, what if you had to look at ministry, because we define success so differently. Mm-hmm. How would you define success for the minister of the gospel?
Well, I guess the best way I can caption it is this. Success occurs, to me, when you are a blessing to others. And when you are, not when you get blessed and, you know, they buy you a Bentley and all that kind of stuff like that, but when you are a blessing to others and when you see others come to Christ under your ministry, that's when you know you've been successful. Wow. If you don't see that, you failed miserably.
I need to know your secret, because I've seen you come preach for your children out in Loudoun. I've seen you do, and the next day be in the country somewhere in North Carolina, somewhere in Virginia, Southern Virginia, somewhere in South Carolina, then flying across the country or even out of the nation. How have you, what is your secret?
Well, excuse me. Well, to answer your question, let me put it like this. It was foolishness. I dare not do that ever again. I paid for that in the worst kind of a way in 2016 when I had a massive stroke. But that's what I did because that's what I was called to do. And I didn't know anything else to do. So if somebody said, come preach, I'd like, okay, if you call me in the middle of the night, I'm ready to go. And I think in my zealousness to fulfill my calling, I ignored myself. And my body was talking to me, and I was ignoring it. And I laugh at people because I remember a deacon would always talk about, oh, you got plenty of money, you got plenty of money. You're preaching everywhere. But little did he know, and I would never tell him. And now I can't tell him, but I never would tell him. I went to many of those places and paid them to let me preach.
I'm a witness.
I ain't get anything. Or sometimes I go to a pastor's anniversary and the church is cheap and don't want to give him nothing or her anything. And I would take whatever they gave me, sign the check right over to the pastor. Yeah, you take that. My grandmother told me something many, many years ago. It's funny. She told me, boy, you're never gonna have anything because you give everything away. But here's what my grandmama didn't know. I was only mimicking what I saw in her.
Wow.
Because my grandmama was a house where anybody could come and eat. The winos on the street, could come. She didn't let them come in the house. They had to eat on the back porch. What she said, get on out there, get on and get you something to eat. And get on out there and sit down. And she feed everybody. And my grandmother didn't have a lot of money. My grandmother, my grandmother was, to put it in modern terms, was a domestic engineer.
Wow. Okay.
My grandmother took care of the homes of wealthy people.
Wow.
And she would give, and she had nothing. But she would give. But here's the interesting thing, Doc. Even though she had nothing, she always had something to give.
Wow. Powerful. You lit up, Bishop, when you mentioned your children, your wife, your grandchildren. You lit up when you mentioned your grandmother. Tell us one of those stories, something that she, in addition to giving, a life lesson, something that she said to you that stuck.
Listen, there's so many things my grandmother said to me that stuck. Some of that stuff I thought was trash, but now it's so real, and it's so relevant. Those life lessons that you can't get anywhere. Nobody's teaching those life lessons.
Give us an example.
An example of one of those life lessons. My grandmother would say, "Boy, don't give all yourself away, because you'll have nothing left for yourself."
Wow.
Well, I found that out. when you give. You know, we say this, I give myself away. You better hold something back.
Bishop, let's stay right there.
Okay.
Because if you had a ministry mulligan, if you had a do-over in ministry, what would it be?
Nothing.
Wow.
I'd do it all again.
Wow. A life of no regrets is what you hear today. We have run out of time, but we're going to come back. We're gonna stop for now. But the Bible says, and you talk, Bishop, about honoring and everyone who knows you and people who are watching who may not know you. Let me just say, I do not know a pastor, a bishop, an under shepherd who is more generous than this man that we have with us today. He did not know the questions that we were going to ask, and he does not know about this. This is Clergy Appreciation Month, and we just want to honor you today. And so we're not sending it to the church. We want to send these gifts to you, Bishop. So if you want to bless the man of God today, what you were going to do for me or anyone else, we want you to sow into his life, into his ministry, and his Cash App. You could do this by the way of Cash App. It's Dr. Leonard N. Smith. Is that it?
It's $, Dr. Leonard N. Smith.
Okay. $, Dr. Leonard N. Smith. I tell you, what a wonderful thing right now. And if we could hear the little bell going off, I tell you, that's the blessing bell. And we're so grateful. What we're going to do is, I have several other questions for you. And I'm going to ask those, and we're going to play those on another day. Is there anything you just want to leave us with, a thought, Bishop, just about ministry, something you'd like to say to us?
I'll leave you with this. If you dare to embark upon ministry, don't play with it. It's serious business. It's of life and death. Not always yours, but those people who listen to you.
I tell you, we have been blessed beyond measure, and I want you to tune in for the next virtual stream. We're going to hear a little more from Dr. Leonard N. Smith. Bishop, we're honored again. So honored to have you, and I want you just to stay tuned. But listen, the word of the Lord, and we use the scripture all the time. It's from Ephesians 3:20. It says, "Now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly, above all that we can ask or imagine, according to the power that works within us. Go in peace and have a blessed week."